Good morning, y'all. It's Tuesday, the 16th of April, 2024. And I hope you had a good Monday. It was a Monday for me at work. It was a Monday. I'm glad it's Tuesday. Beautiful sunny day outside. All right. And I'm inside. But thankfully, I work from home. I'm not stuck in a big building. We're going to apologize about being late. I was talking to my pastor. We talk every morning on the phone and pray together. And we got talking, chasing some rabbit trails. So running a few minutes late. So I apologize about that. And we're going to continue with talking about marriage, divorce, and remarriage. And we're in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Yesterday, I gave some background on pastors, bishops, where there are folks out there that say pastors cannot be divorced and remarried and be a pastor. And they go to 1 Timothy 3 and try to use that. And Scripture is very clear in that passage. If you read it, it's talking about marriage present tense. You can't be married to more than one wife. And I gave a good example because it says, how can you rule the house of God? Let's just look back over there. 1 Timothy chapter 3. 1 Timothy chapter 3. And it is a true, this is a verse 1. This is a true saying. If a man desire the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, apt to teach, not given to wine, no striker, not greedy of filthy lucre, but patient, not a brawler, but not covetousness, one that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? Now, when we look at a passage, it's very important to look at the entire passage. And the entire passage, if we read it, will give us an answer to what the entire context is about. So if you're just looking at verse 1, you may not understand, and most likely won't understand, the whole context of the passage. Because it goes on to talk more about the bishop. Because at the end of verse 2, a bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife. And he gets down there to apt to teach. There's a semicolon. It's a pause in thought. It's not a completion of the sentence. It's not a completion of the thought. It's a pause. And then that pause continues. Verse 5 is in parentheses, with Paul talking. And it does not close out into verse 6. So the whole context is given how a bishop should be. And in verse 4 and 5, it says, one that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity, semicolon. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? What does that mean? It means his current house has to be in decent and in order, including his wife and his children. And if a pastor is married and he has multiple wives, he's going to have a house that's out of order, hands down. And I used a perfect example, King Solomon. He was still king of Israel, yet he had 700 wives and 400 concubines and ended up backsliding. Why? Because his own house was shipwrecked. His own house was out of order. So he could not even rule the house of Israel towards the end very well. And he was very backslidden towards the end of his life. Now, by all accounts and purposes, I believe he got right. I mean, he wrote Proverbs and Song of Solomon and Ecclesiastes, and later on in his life, after he'd learned so many lessons. But he's a good example of being the leader. He was the basically king. I mean, he's the king of Israel. He's the leader of Israel. He couldn't even rule his own house because of the situation. And so in context, chapter 3, 1 Timothy chapter 3, a pastor, if he had multiple wives and multiple children, most likely his house is out of order. So he would not be able to rule the house of God. Now also, though, I will say this, pastors that have one wife can have kids that are out of order, and he can't effectively rule the house of God. I've been in churches where that situation was very present. The pastor struggled because his house was out of order. Honestly, that was one of the things in my own time as a pastor. My house was not completely in order. I had things going on at home. And it sometimes made it difficult for me to pastor. So we have to look at this in whole context. Chapter 3, 1 Timothy 3, verse 2, does not mean he cannot be divorced as a pastor and still be pastor and cannot be remarried. They're taking verses out of context when they do that. Now, back over here to chapter 1 Corinthians 7. We'll start breaking down over the next couple days. Probably tomorrow. I'm kind of short on time today. But we're going to say here, back here, verse 10, and unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord. Let not the wife depart from her husband. If the wife and the husband are married, Paul's saying, don't let the wife depart. The wife should not depart from her husband. But verse 11, he goes on, and if she depart, let her remain unmarried, or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. Now, there are reasons Paul says this, and we'll break that down tomorrow. But for sake of time, I got to late start. I'm going to end the devotion for today. And remember this, anytime you have questions about anything that I teach, number one, search the scriptures for yourself. Compare scripture with scripture. And if there's something you don't agree with or maybe don't understand, please don't hesitate to write me. You can email me. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can email me, brokenroadchannel@gmail.com. If you're watching this on Facebook, you can message me directly on Facebook. If you have questions, concerns, maybe something you don't agree with, write me and let's reason it out. Let's compare scripture with scripture together. That's what I asked for this channel. That's all I have for today. God bless y'all. Hope you have a good day and talk to you tomorrow.